Heather's is the story of Veronica, a girl who is associated with the three most popular girls in her high school, Heather Duke, Heather McNamara, and the leader, Heather Chandler. Heather Chandler manipulates the entire school into doing what she wants. Until the day Veronica meets Jason, or JD for short, an outcast rebel who tricks her into orchestrating a series of killings, masquerading them as suicides for the general public, and unintentionally making these horrible people into martyrs. 13 Reasons Why is the story of Hannah Baker, a young, sheltered girl who one day suddenly kills herself. 13 cassettes were recorded orchestrating why she decided to kill herself, given to Clay Jensen, her closest friend, who also was in love with her. Now Clay is trying to piece together why Hannah decided to kill herself and who is to blame. Both Heather's and 13 Reasons Why try to tackle the idea of suicide in a very different way, with a very similar setting. But both of them force us to ask the same question. Why is suicide romanticized? In order to understand how suicide is shown in the pop culture and how it actually is in our everyday society, we have to first address the misunderstanding. This refers to the idea that there is a personal reason or there's a series of events that cause a suicide. Now, in some cases, this is true, but not in all cases. Much like how people who deal with depression are labeled as just sad, those that deal with suicide are often labeled as just giving up or not quite understanding what living is, when in reality, most of them understand living more than everyone, and they see the idea of living as suffering. When someone is in constant pain, they have the core need to end that pain. In the same way that when someone is burned, they want ointment. People believe that, as an example, if you were in a relationship with someone and they killed themselves, that you were the root cause. And it is possible that you may have played a factor, but in actuality, there is very, very few black and white answers. One of the ways people discuss and handle suicide is the same way that we discuss and handle murders, which is like how JD handles it. He detaches himself from the murders that he committed because he just sees it as an action to get to an end, not necessarily for a root cause. That detachment allows him to not see the world as life and death. He sees the world as one-to-one, which is similar but different. Much like how Hannah gives tapes in order to force an attachment to those that didn't have one in the first place. But this detachment has a cost. The more you detach from life and the lives of others, the less you feel empathy or sympathy, and you grow colder and you become bitter until the point where you're alone. The mystery of why someone does this is really the thing that keeps everything going. People want to make connections as to why someone would kill themselves. Veronica and JD try to plant the seeds based off of the actions of Heather and the other victims in order to orchestrate the narrative of how they're seen, not necessarily how they were. As an example, the two football-playing bullies would constantly pick on the nerds and would hurt them and would call them offensive slangs for homosexuals. So, when they are eventually killed, As a sense of poetic justice, Veronica and JD orchestrated to look like they were in fact homosexuals with each other. Even though this wasn't true, it painted a narrative for those who knew them and knew how their actions truly were, to justify their actions as a fear and repercussions to themselves. The pedestal is in some cases the side effect and after effect of suicides and murders. It's putting someone as higher than themselves, making the horrible actions that they committed in life irrelevant, only how they died the only important thing, thus cementing their legacy as people who are no longer here, as opposed to people who were here. Unfortunately, this can have real-world consequences. 13 Reasons Why was presented so poorly that the Suicide Prevention Network said it hit 10 out of 12 of the list of things not to do in suicide prevention. And because of this, the series had real-life copycat suicides of young teenagers who wanted to be a martyr, put on a pedestal that they can't personally see themselves in right now. Just like how Heather Chandler was put on this amazing pedestal as being better and more superior than she was in life, because in actuality, she was a horrible human being. As Veronica points out while she's watching TV, hearing these testimonials from people who absolutely despised her because of how she mistreated them. 13 Reasons Why presents things in a dramatic way, but presents it in a wrong perspective, seeing society as the root cause of the suicide. In the movie Heathers, even though it deals with the same subjects, it uses suicide not throughout the major story, but watching it again, as a character throughout the entirety of the movie, in the background. A character I've yet to talk about, but she's the most important character and probably one of the most important characters in any capacity to deal with suicide. Her name is Martha Dunstock, nicknamed Martha Dump Truck. She's a heavy-set girl in the high school. She doesn't have friends. She is not like anyone else. At the beginning of the film, Heather tricks Veronica into writing a love letter from the head jock to Martha, so Martha will go up to him and say she likes him as well, knowing that she does like him. She's humiliated, insulted, mistreated, and made fun of all throughout the film. 2/3 of the way through the film, one of the most powerful scenes I've ever seen in a film happens. At this point in the film, several characters have already died, being put on a pedestal they were already on to begin with. Martha Dunstock, however, is stuck alone in the bleachers by herself, drinking her soda, when she spills her soda on her shirt, and seeing how beloved everyone else was in their deaths, has a note attached to her chest and walks into oncoming traffic. As one of the other Heathers tells Veronica she is horrified that Martha would want to kill herself, knowing full well that she's orchestrated these other deaths, to which Heather responds with,
"She's alive and in stable condition. Just another case of a geek trying to imitate the popular people of the school and failing miserably."
This, unfortunately, is very true, and how a lot of people perceive suicide as just a cry for attention. And in some cases it is true that it is seeking attention, but not quite in the way people perceive it. Suicide isn't a thing that people do to be popular. It's not a thing of wanting attention. It's truly a matter of wanting to be existing, want to be seen, even be loved by someone who doesn't understand them, in a world that doesn't understand them. 13 Reasons Why handles suicide in a way that makes it seem as though being on the pedestal is the important part. Through the perspective of Clay Jensen, we're supposed to believe that there's some sort of karmic justice at the other end of the aisle. That we, as the audience, are supposed to believe that there's some sort of deeper mystery angle as to why Hannah killed herself, who caused it, that there's trying to be a concrete solution. But in actuality, the most obvious answer is she felt unloved. She felt uncared for. She felt that the world had betrayed her, because that is the truth. But as simple as that is, it's even harder to accept as a reality. But that's not what suicide should be. Suicide should be the same way life is. It's a battle. It's a fight that each and every one of us have to deal with. And some of us, unfortunately, can't keep fighting. Some of us just can't keep going forward. So why is suicide romanticized? I think it comes down to a fear of the unknown. that deep down we all have thoughts of not wanting to be here anymore. We all think about how we are perceived and how we should be remembered and how we associate ourselves with people around us. And sometimes we take that perception out of our own hands. Sometimes we think maybe the world would be better off without us. But just like the ending of the movie Heathers, sometimes it's not about perceiving suicide, it's perceiving life. Some of us can, with a little help. These may not be answers, but they are hypotheticals. Please stay loved, and please give love.
Around.